Hey everyone, welcome to my first battle report ever. Whoa! This is a battle report between Warriors of the Dark Gods and Highborn Elves, 4500 points. And as you can see, the first list is the Warriors of the Dark Gods list. It's quite a balanced list. It features a Doom Lord, which is the general, and he's going to hide in a block of Forsworn with spiked shields. Further to fill up the core, I have 20 warriors, ones with great weapons and a zealot standard, ones 15 warriors with halberds and envy. I chose envy just because it seemed attractive, and I just want to try it out really, just to see how it works. Then I have twice 5 barbarian horsemen to have a bit of a dual role between chaff and still being able to withhold themselves in combat. I have 5 warrior knights, 2 chimeras, mostly as chaffing monsters, a Helmar because I believe that it makes warriors a very interesting army to play, and a marauding giant with a wandering familiar. As you can see in this list, I don't really have a dedicated wizard, but I hope to be able to have enough magic between the 2 icons of the infinite, the wandering familiar, and the crown of the wizard king on the Doom Lord. Then for the Highborn Elves, this is a list that a cousin of mine plays, and well, he's been tinkering a lot about this. So in the end, he fielded a High Prince. Basically, this is a guy with a 2+ armor save, I believe, with a reroll on it, with a Nova Flare, so he can count as charging a second time. And well, he kicks hard. Then we have a commander with a battle standard and a griffin, nothing too fancy there. We have a mage with a Book of Maladis, how you want to pronounce it. I think it's a very good pick for any highborn elf mage character. Then we have a core which is being composed of 21 citizen spears with a running banner, 21 sea guard and 5 highborn lances, 2x5 Knights of Rima that hit very hard on the charge, 10 Lion Guard with Skirmish, which he found to be a very flexible unit, 2x5 Swordmasters, 2x5 Grey Watchers, and 10 Queen's Guard. So then for the battle report itself, as you can see, I set up a webcam to record our game. I realized that I should have put it a little bit higher to cover the entire table, but at the moment when we were recording, I thought that might still be okay. But for the next time, I'll definitely just give a bit of more zoom so you can see the entire table in effect. The scenario we were playing was Encircle with Breakthrough as a secondary objective, and the Warriors of the Dark Gods are deploying on the top, whilst the Highborn Elves are deploying at the bottom. And currently you're seeing that we are just taking our turns in deploying units one by one. I see a lot on the internet that a lot of players just decide to drop their entire armies in one go and take the first turn. And I don't think that this is really a wise move to do, because if you drop your entire army and the opponent still has his entire army left, you can counter deploy very easily and mitigate the damage that you will take from the deployment of your opponent in the first turn. But by now I decided to drop indeed everything, as I saw that my opponent placed his Knights of Rima on either flanks, and in this way I can keep at least one of these units out of the main combat that's presumably going to happen. So my considerations at this point were mostly that I want my army to go towards him, to run towards him, to knock him down, as Warriors of the Dark Gods should, in my opinion, do. So you can already see on the bottom of the screen to the left of the building that there is a marker for the Helmar. That's his ominous gateway that he brought himself. And my plan for the first turn was to put just another marker to the bottom of the forest where I'm placing the Forsworn and the Giant in, and then allow my entire army to rush up to his side. Yeah, so for deployment, what you are not seeing and well, what you are seeing in the board, to the top left are the warrior knights, and then following from that to the right is the chimera, the warriors with the halberds, the marauding giant with the wandering familiar, and the chariot behind it, then 4 marauder horsemen with the icon of the infinite, the 5 forsworn with the doom lord, the other barbarian horsemen, then the warriors with the great weapons, one of the other chariots, and another chimera. And Helmar is in this picture behind the forest in the middle, just on the top of the table. As, as you can see, we swapped out the ruins that we had on the table, so this would not be a very okay move for a tournament. But the rune piece that we gave to the the Highborn Elf player is a bit more tolerant towards models to have them being placed on them, and he was fitting nearly his entire army on these ruins. So for the Highborn Elves, what you can see on the bottom left, you can see the Lion Guard with the Knights of Rima behind. Then in the middle, well, yeah, this is why I should really zoom out a bit more with my camera. But in the middle are the one unit Swordmasters and a unit of Grey Watchers. Then you can see barely behind the building that I believe, yeah, there's another unit of Swordmasters there. And then in the ruins is his Sea Guard together with the Queen's Guard behind them. And then to the right of that you can see the Highborn Lances together with the Griffin, which he just placed down, and the Knights of Rima. And then all the way to the right of that was even more space for a block of citizen spears. And one of the last models he placed, which he, to my understanding, placed, well, rather unfortunately, as his general. You can see him on the right of the Lion Guard, all the way tucked up in the corner of the deployment. Yeah, and this is the deployment. So from my perspective, I was still able with my deployment to make sure that he didn't castle up in either one of the corners, that I didn't give him the freedom to do that. I don't know if his understanding of this is the same, obviously. But I think that I posed a bit of a threat to him by placing the Forsworn in the middle, that in this way don't need to make use of the portal, because they have movement 6, so they will be able to clear the field in about 2 turns and then get to charges on turn 3. So you can see that we started with turn 1, my turn 1. I'm just moving up everything really. So I try to stay clear of the things that I'm really afraid of. With my warrior block, I'm not really afraid of his High Prince, because if he charges in, of course, he's gonna damage the unit quite a bit, kill the champion and the challenge, but then he'll be stuck and then he'll be up for counter charges. And also the giant, well, he can charge the giant and then he has 2 rounds to kill it, basically. But even then, with I believe a total of well, 5 strength 6 attacks per turn, he might not even kill the giant, and the attacks of the giant on him, well, he has this armor save that's quite okay with a reroll, so that he might be fine. But well, if my giant is going to be able to smack on this lord, then I'm perfectly fine with that. So yeah, and generally I'm just walking up. You can see that the barbarian horsemen, they're down to 4 models near the giant. That's because they took a dangerous terrain test from the forest. I was debating to do this, but the advantage I get out of this is that I'm now within 18 inches of the Grey Watchers on the bottom of the screen, just out of sight. So I can cast the bounce spell of the Icon of the Infinite on these Grey Watchers, which is quite important to me, because in this way I can actually put pressure on my opponent during the magic phase. and this is also something he hadn't foreseen. Otherwise, well, I'm just putting pressure up with the pieces that I can use to do so. So on the top right, I'm trying to stay outside of charge range of the Griffin. For the Chariot, this doesn't really happen because I still I'm still on a 12 for him, I believe. But a 12 is okay for me. If he goes for it, then I could make it. But if he fails, then well, the result's gonna be pretty horrible to him. Yeah, and then that's the movement phase. I would say. Oh, there's the Helmo. There we have the Helmo. Yeah. Yeah. So I believe that generally I can put quite some pressure on the field, and also put pressure on places where I want the pressure to be. Now we go on to magic. So the first thing I'm doing is to cast the Icon of the Infinite bounce spell on the Grey Watchers. Let me see when it's gonna happen. Yeah, here. This is the 4+, 2d3 strength 6 on the Grey Watchers. He dispels it, and then I cast my Breath of Corruption on the giant with a range of 18 inches, for which I sacrifice one of the Barbarian Horsemen. And then I use it to just go to town on his lord, which was not in a unit, and I kill it. This was quite a turning point already in the game, just turn 1, and my opponent was quite surprised by this. I believe we played it right. Oh yeah, that's the marker for the Helmo, so within line of sight, within 24 inches. Yeah, he was quite struck by this, and I also proposed that we could reset the game and just start over again, because obviously losing turn 1 a model of 600 points nearly, that does pose a real threat to my army. Yeah, it's tough. And yeah, usually when we play to, well, most of it have fun, and also practice for tournaments, and then try out funky lists, and well, hopefully you'll see a lot more of these on this channel. So we really considered starting over again, but in the end we didn't. Yeah, now it's his turn. So he charges in on the Barbarian Horseman. I can flee with those, but then then the horses are just going to move up a little bit, and I'd rather have them move up the full distance. Because if they only move up a little bit, I could only charge reliably with the Forsworn, and then they'll flee, and then they'll probably rally again, and I don't get rid of them at all. In this way, yeah, the horses come in, they can overrun, but that puts them in a bad position really against my Great Weapon Warriors. So I think it's the best play to just keep standing with my Barbarian Horseman. He's trying to pressurize me with his Line Guard and his Knights of Rima. And well, the advantage I have here is that obviously I have a lot more units on this on the left flank than he has. But I can imagine that he wants to pressurize me a bit to the extent that he is able to. But I'm not really worried about it. The Line Guard are skirmishers, so they're light troops, so they can't reliably break the warriors, and the warrior knights still have this 1+ armor save. So whilst they will get hurt badly by the warriors, they'll also dish out some damage themselves, so it might still be okay to just throw them in. Yeah, what else is happening? Not a lot really now. I believe we're on to magic. Yeah, there's reroll from the Book of Melodies. Well, generally he desperately tries to save his hereditary spell, so the Favor of Melodies, to the end of the phase, and then I usually try to dispel that one, so he gets off some minor buffs, or at least buffs that I think are minor, such as a reroll to hit on the Sea Guard to shoot at my Forsworn. The Forsworn have toughness 4 and a 2+ armor save, so I don't really care about the shooting, because if he plucks off 1 or 2 wounds, it's fine by me. That's why I have 5 models and not only 3 models. Yeah. yeah, so you can also see that I put down the markers for the Grey Watcher hits. So these are hits from units of Grey Watchers that give me -1 to hit in combat and on my shooting. Here we go to combat. So he smashes up the unit of Barbarians, and I hit back and I don't do anything. So he can overrun if he wants to. He elects not to do this, and I think that, yeah, that is probably the right play, because he wouldn't end up in either of my units anyway. And well, if he ends up in the Great Weapon unit, then it'll just slow me down for one turn. He might kill some warriors, but that's not the end of the world to me. And then it's over to my turn too. So for charges, I obviously need to get rid of the Lancers unit, because it's such a great opportunity to get rid of it. And also, if I don't get rid of it, they're gonna pose some problems later on. So I elect to use in my mind, most suitable target for this, and that is going to be the Chariot. In hindsight, I could also have used the warrior unit for it, but then probably he would have fled, I think, leaving my warriors only with a movement of like, well, whatever the dice indicate, so that's about 3 inches, I guess. And the Chariot in itself will most likely also be sufficient to end the Lancers. And also, if it doesn't happen this turn, then probably next turn. Okay, so then the puzzle on the left flank. Well, the Knights of Rima are set up for an ideal countercharge, obviously, for anything that I want to do. So I elect to just sacrifice a unit of Barbarians. I elect to throw my my Chariot through the portal to speed it up immensely, and I use the banner of the Relentless Company on the warriors to also race across the field, and of course the movement of the knights to just zoom by the white lions. And I think this was a very elegant solution to the problem that I faced of these two units that could have been very frustrating for me to deal with. Yeah, I set this up with the mindset of having to sacrifice the Barbarian Horsemen on the left flank, but trading a unit of Barbarian Horsemen for a unit of Knights of Rima even is a very good deal. And sometimes it's about the sacrifices you have to make. The move you see here, the last one with the Chimera, was also in my mind a very important one. Because charging Knights of Rima in the flank of my Halberd warriors is not something I would like. 10 attacks that hit on, I believe, 2s or 3s, and then wound on 2s is not something that you like with your Halberd warriors. Because they might even break them and then just run them down, and then the unit's gone. So I'd rather just catch the charge with the Chimera. If the overrun would even reach there, it would be an 11-inch overrun, I believe, and then be able to countercharge with Warrior Knight, because this also limits the amount of wounds that he can do with his cavalry. So in the end, in combat res, I would hope that I could get it to close to a draw, and then with a reroll on the break test, I would presumably stick around and grind them down with the Warrior Knights having strength 4 on a 1+ armor save, versus his toughness 3 with a 2+ armor save and just strength 3. So this is the end of the movement. I'm quite happy about this setup. I'm really pushing him away from his table edge. Yeah, and now the question is whether he can just push through my army or whether he cannot. And the Forsworn, even though they seem like such a small block of just 6 models, that it's still 15 wounds with a toughness 4 2+ armor save. So that's, I found it to be just a brick to get through for any of my opponents. And yeah, I've seen a lot of lists where they also use more Forsworn with the Doomlord, but I don't see the value of adding more than 5 models really. Surely you'll get some more supporting attacks, because well, maybe some models die, but I don't think you feel the Forsworn themselves to be delivering the damage. Here we do the combat with the chariot. So the chariot does a wound. It had taken a wound from the dangerous terrain of the ruins. And then actually the lancers, they decide to run away. So I have a flank, I have a charge, I have a wound, he has a banner. So only on a -2 they just run away, and they end up running away from me far enough to go off the board, because he had some other troops down the board, the Sea Guard and the Queen's Guard. They passed the panic check, so nothing's wrong there, but the lancers are gone. I should have reformed the chariot there, but I apparently didn't do that. I should have turned it to give it a wider angle towards the right field of the right side of the board, because he still has his citizen spears also on the flank. Here you can see what happens if a unit of Knights of Rima smashes into a unit of Forsworn, and what happens if a Griffin smashes into a chariot. And well, also, yeah, he had a lot of charges this turn, which I can understand. And yeah, I'm not really bothered by any of these charges. As you can see, he lost one of the Knights of Rima in the forest, which was a bit exciting to me, really, because he could have maybe also just not hit the Chimera again after removing the model, but we looked at it and he would still have hit the Chimera, so I did a proper job there. He uses the White Lions to chaff up my knights. I wasn't at the time very concerned by this, because I thought I could throw in the Giant and the Chimera and the Knight. And obviously the White Lions have double wounds against gigantic models, but there's only so many wounds you can do, right? Yeah, so yeah, he does some magic, and this was actually the turn in which all of his magic passed, so yeah, that was quite annoying to me, because he did Scrying on the Knights, and he did Favor of Malades, and then he did yet another spell which I can't remember, to be honest. But well, it was a case of him throwing an 8, me needing a 9, and throwing an 8 also with more dice sometimes. But anyway, well, stuff happens like that. It's dice, you can't change the dice sometimes. Yeah, so then with shooting he whittles down just a couple of warriors. He puts a wound on the chariot that's nearly off the board, but it's not really substantial to me. It's yeah, you take a couple of wounds here and there, but that's what you've got to expect. Yeah, but after all, it's only 2 units of Grey Watchers, of course, and 1 unit of Queen's Guard and a unit of Lothern Sea Guard. It's yeah, in terms of shots, it's not even the highest amount you can field. For High Elves it is nearly, but that's because it's High Elves and not some other army, like for example Orcs and Goblins, which don't have a limit on the amount of bows that they can field, I believe, which is quite remarkable. But yeah, his shooting does some wounds, but not really on units that feel the effect of the wounds very much. So then we go after this into combat. Let's see what happens. Some dice rolling. Oh yeah, this was the Spearmen. They went in on the Chimera that was just off the field to the right. They just beat it, and then it got chased off the board, or it ran off the board. Then we go to the chariot. He just well, killed the chariot basically. So he has 3 attacks with the hero that wounded 2, and the Griffin also has strength 6, so that chewed easily through the chariot. And then we go to the Dragon Princes. They hit with nearly all of their attacks. They wound with, I believe it was 9 wounds. And then my 2+ armor save goes to a 5+ armor save, and I managed to save 5 times. So I only get 4 wounds, and the 5 saves that I make are strength 4 hits back onto the unit, which kills off, as we see here, 2 dragon princes. So I was quite amused by this. Yeah, and I was a little bit lucky, of course. But even then, it's well, if it had been 2 more wounds on my unit, yeah, then the unit only has 7 wounds left, obviously. But still, it's still leadership 9, rerollable, stubborn, so it's not likely to go anywhere. And then the Doom Lord just goes your way and just kills off the entire unit. Yeah, obviously the Dragon Princes kill the Barbarians, and then, well, the field is kind of set up for me to finish the job. So the Great Weapon Warriors are ready to crush the Dragon Princes, the Hellmark, and go into the flank of the Griffin. We didn't really look into what would happen there. The Warriors and the Giant and the Chimera can go into the Lion Guard, as I said earlier, and then on the overrun go into the Dragon Princes. I still have the Chariot and the Warriors to go onto the units in the ruins, and well, I still have, of course, also multiple turns to do this. Yeah, by that time there's not a lot of the High Elves left, really. Of course, I had to sacrifice some models to completely push my opponent off the field, but this is the point where we called the game and decided that it was going to be a massive victory for the Warriors of the Dark Gods. If you feel like this is not a right conclusion, then we can argue about it in the comments. But I think it's a conclusion that that it's really fair to make, because, well, if the Highborn Elves are on the receiving ends of the decision making part, then they really die pretty quickly. Whilst when they're deciding where the combat happens, then they're of course going to be governing the battle. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you liked this video, and if you do, then please like and subscribe for hopefully a lot of more further videos in the future. And always tips and tricks and comments are always welcome. Currently I'm also trying to figure out which software to use for the battle report constructing, so if you have any tips on that, please let me know. Thank you, and see you soon.